question for you has been sent in by one of the members, which is, could you touch upon the process that leads to publication of LTC pricing? Miners must have an interest. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a really good question because we aren't seeing much long-term contract, and I've got a bit of a bugbear when it comes to the way it's being reported at the moment. So let me explain two basic concepts, if you can indulge me a little bit here.
Definitely.
So the first one is, although there's seen to be a spot price, it isn't a spot price. It's not an exchange price, it's a reported price. And the same is the case for the long-term contract price. You've got now three different price reporters, and they rely on the strength of their relationships throughout the industry and the motivations of the players in the industry to report to them the deal that they've done. And then what they do is they make it anonymous, and if there's enough volume, they aggregate it and blind it and then report it as what's happened. So you could see a single deal being reported, and that would be that week's long-term contract price. The other thing I want to explain is how a long-term contract works with its time frame. So in very basic terms, and we can come back to this maybe next time I'm on if there's interest from your listeners, but basically a long-term contract, typically they'll go out for a request for proposal, they'll get those proposals back, they'll have a look at them, they might negotiate a little bit with their preferred responders, then they'll enter into contractual negotiations, then they will sign a deal, and typically it's only a couple of months later that deal will filter out into the reporters who report it, if at all. There are many instances where either counterparty is very keen to report or leak it, and there are instances where a counterparty is absolutely insistent on maintaining the confidentiality of that. And as you can imagine, there's a whole lot of reasons that might drive that. So the reporting is done on that basis. It is relatively unreliable. It's particularly where we aren't seeing a lot of volume. The reporters, and I know them, they do their best to understand if they're being manipulated and to remove those sorts of things. So that's why sometimes you see a discrepancy between trade tech numbers and UXC numbers, because one or the other has said, no, I'm either being manipulated or I'm not getting the full story, or they're telling me that side but not that side. So there is a little bit of judgment used. My bugbear at the moment is we're seeing long-term contracts reported at, say, $32. A long-term contract comes in many different forms. It's not a standardized agreement like we see in true spot markets or other industries. It's a negotiated agreement. In its simplest form, it's a fixed price that's either escalated or predetermined for 2022, 2023, 2024, and you can just go to the schedule of the contract and you can see this is how much we're going to pay. But more often than not, it's a blend. So it might say, right, we're 60% fixed according to this price that's then escalated, but the other 40%, we're going to say it's spot plus 10% at the time of delivery, subject to a collar and subject to a cuff.
Sounds like structured finance.
Yeah. Well, there's
there you go. Right? Yeah.
And if you listen to, if you hear Tim Gitzel talking about his contract book, they talk about it as a whole portfolio, but he'll talk about how much of it's fixed price escalated, how much of it is market sensitive, et cetera. They never talk about the collars and the cuffs, but they've built into their contract portfolio where they are exposed to markets. They obviously have the cuff, and in return, they provide a collar. So my bugbear is that the contracts that are being done at the moment, many of them are simply spot reference contracts. So we'll provide you in 2023, but you're going to pay the spot price, or the spot price minus 5, or the spot price plus 10%, or whatever it is. And Tim Gitzel said that they're the only contracts that they're writing unless they see a four handle in front of a fixed term escalated. The price reporters, what are they going to do with the contract except take an assumed spot price at that point in the future and report that as a price. So they take today's spot price, they escalate it from now to 2023, and they say, well, the long-term contract for 2023 delivery is therefore $32. It does not give a realistic picture of what utilities would need to pay when we see true price discovery because of a volume of contracts.
But why can't someone like a Trade Tech or a UXC calculate these things? Like, you're involved with the WNSA, right, which is the World Nuclear Association, and you helped them write a number of papers, and the Nuclear Fuel Report, which came out September last year, or was published in September last year. Why? And the utilities buy those. They buy the WNA report. They buy from the trade players. They must be able to estimate what's going on in terms of production in the world. Obviously, the last few weeks are an exception, but typically, if, like last year, for instance, they will know exactly who's going to produce what in the market, and they're going to make a call. These are smart guys who are doing the maths. I mean, quite simply, they're doing the maths on this thing, and the price hadn't moved. It hasn't moved for years. And obviously, this week, we've seen a little uptick, and we've seen a little V shape in some uranium companies' share price. But it's of the last 2 weeks. I'm more concerned that, again, the opaque nature of this market means that it's difficult for people outside it to read it and make a call. The utility buyers, and I guess to some degree the fund managers, should be able to have a better view of the market, but it's hard for us to read. I'm an investor. I want to be able to work out, and I guess everyone watching this wants to be able to work out, what are the signals? What should I be looking for? What's real? What's not? Why is it so difficult?
And so the utilities, in very simple terms, fall into two camps. The first camp, the larger ones who do their own analysis, who've got analysts in there who'll crunch the numbers and form a view. And then the smaller ones, and this might be a power company that's a diversified power company where nuclear, they've got 2 or 3 reactors in their portfolio. Things like solar and wind and getting subsidies for those power sources are far more important. And if there's I've had conversations with these types where they say, well, technically we've got 1/4 of an analyst, but we haven't had much time of his lately because he's crunching the numbers on a new vehicle fleet for our employees or something like that. So what they tend to do is they tend to make sure that they stay in step with the crowd, because as a fuel buyer, you're not paid to take chances and you're not paid to make big calls and take risks, particularly in an organisation like that. You're paid to make sure that you do your job, which means stay in step. And what that really means is follow the advice of the consultants, your UXCs and your trade techs of this world, and what they're saying about it. So if we go to the bigger ones who do their analysis, some of them, I will have a closed door conversation and they'll say, yeah, absolutely, we're preparing for the scenario of $70 a pound. And we saw what happened last time, and it can go up. And that's part of their risk mitigation. In the meantime, they don't have to pay that, so they won't. So they'll nibble at the edges and they'll pick up what they can on spot, and they'll max out on their exposure to, say, Uranium 1, the Russian producer, and they'll max out on their exposure to, say, Kazatomprom, and then they'll just wait and see, knowing that they're working in that scenario. Their job is not particularly easy because they're not miners. The bigger guys do have advisors. They need to make a call on what is going to be the marginal cost of production and how much ahead of the crowd do they need to be so that they aren't forced to be paying that marginal cost of production. And depending on their view on demand, they then need to make a decision of how many new projects are going to come in and what will their marginal cost of production be when they've got quite a number of promoters of, say, less advanced uranium projects telling the world at large that they can produce on some very realistic numbers, very optimistic numbers on some very optimistic timeframes. And it's hard enough as a savvy, hardened sort of bruised and scarred investor to make calls on who's bullshitting you and who's not, let alone a utility who's in the business of producing power, not mining, and doesn't have the benefit of listening to 10 company promoters a day sort of file through their office and pick the lies from the truths. So that's some of the difficulties that they face.